Here are the businesses that I would not start, and I would recommend you to think twice before starting these today. My name is Nate Jones. I make videos about entrepreneurship, how to start businesses, and how to get your business to the next level. And today we're talking about the businesses that I would not start. I'm going to go through these 3 types of businesses, and each business in these categories that I would really stay away from. And then at the end, you're going to want to stick around because I'm going to give you 10 businesses in which I think there's an opportunity for you to start in 2024. These are businesses that I would personally start if I didn't have my existing businesses taking up a good portion of my time. So let's hop into this. Number 1 is non-reoccurring businesses. If there is no reoccurring revenue, I would not start that business. Here are some examples. Roofing company. You do one roof, you're never going to interact with that customer, probably, unless you're in commercial roofing, maybe if you have a property manager, but really commercial roofing, even residential roofing for sure, that's a one transaction type of business. I don't like that because once I finish that roof, I got to go find my next revenue. Home building is another thing. Once you build that house, that person's probably not going to call you again to build another house because they just built their dream house. Fashion, anything in kind of high-end fashion, a lot of times people aren't going to that revenue is not going to come back very quickly within a year or two. That's what I'm talking about. Revenue coming back within a year or two. High-end fashion, usually, like I have a Gucci watch, right? So if I were to go buy another watch, it'd probably be another 5 or 6 years till I buy another Gucci type watch, or I might buy another type of watch. But I'm not going to go back every single or more than once a year or twice a year to go buy another watch, okay? Website design is another thing. This is one that a lot of people go into, but there really isn't reoccurring revenue here because once you set up that website, unless there's ongoing management of blogs, you could potentially sell that, but that's really kind of a low end. You're going to charge maybe $2,000 to $3,000 to set up the website if you're really good, and then you're never going to get that on a yearly basis ever again. So the reoccurring revenue there is not reoccurring. And I'm going to tell you why. Why do I care about reoccurring revenue, and why do I preach that so much on my channel? The reason is because businesses with high reoccurring revenue, it means transactions occurring multiple times throughout a year. The reason that I love those businesses is because they generally can be sold at a higher multiple of the profit, and that's called EBITDA. Profit is essentially very close to EBITDA. There's a couple things that are excluded in profit, but I won't get into that. So basically, a business can be sold for anywhere from 2 to 20 times the profit, right? So a roofing company that's profiting $500,000 may not even sell. It may sell just for its profit, but maybe not because everything can dry up at once and that revenue is not reoccurring. So basically, if there's not reoccurring revenue, me as a business person who wants to go buy businesses, I don't want to go buy a business that I'm not sure if I'm going to get my investment out of, if it might just blow up, right? So there are ways in which you can make non-reoccurring revenue businesses reoccurring by having marketing and leads coming in. If you can prove that you have leads coming in, then that's a business that has somewhat recurring revenue. It's still not going to sell for a high multiple though. So I want to build equity in a business. I don't want to feel like I'm on a hamster wheel looking around for my next revenue source, okay? So stay away from non-reoccurring revenue businesses. Number 2, if the business is either very hard to be scaled or it's potentially not even scalable at all. Let me provide some examples and I'll tell you why. Local contracting businesses. You can make a ton of money in these businesses, and I always say, I made a video about a week ago, if you're in local contracting, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, you can scale these businesses to make millions of dollars a year. That is great. But at some point, you're going to hit a ceiling of what is possible because you're stuck in a city or a state, really, and you're not going to drive more than 12 hours to go do a job. You can start kind of a franchise model and start another office somewhere else, but again, you're kind of restarting what you've built. Really, the money train is where you're locally at. So for you to duplicate that in another city or state, it's going to take a lot of time for those referrals to come in just like you've built so far. So what I tell people is if you've built a successful contracting business, you should take that revenue, the profit, take as much as you can, invest in a passive reoccurring revenue business, which is often real estate, right? If I was in contracting and I knew how to fix a wall and fix all the crap behind me, which I don't, I would go buy rental properties, wedding venues, stuff like that, put all my money and put it in reoccurring revenue so that someday I can retire and get away from the contracting business or have somebody else manage it, but those businesses aren't going to sell for that much. So what I'm trying to tell you is it is hard to scale. It's hard to manage a contracting business in another state because unless you really franchise it, it's really hard. Another example of this is food service, so restaurants, right? Having another restaurant in another city or state that you're not really paying attention to. You maybe have a manager, but let's say, I always say there's different types of franchises restaurants that you go to. Some of them are really nice, some of them are really bad. And it depends because sometimes the management isn't around. And if the management's not around, you can tell if the manager or the owner is not at the restaurant. That's why I love going to local restaurants where the owner is in the back cooking, because the food will be good. If the owner is not there, say if the cat's away, the mice will play, right? So same thing when it comes to this. It's very hard to manage in different states. Another thing here, auto repair, auto service industry, very hard to scale out to another state because you, again, just like food service, you can't manage if your guys or your women are doing the right thing for the cars, making sure people are showing up on time, trusting a manager to manage its team. Very hard things to do, hard things to scale because it takes a capital expenditure. You have to basically buy another office, buy another building for the food, buy another building for the auto service, buy a garage, to expand into another state, build all those new referral systems and build all that. It's very hard to scale. I would not want to start a business there. It's very hard to scale past the local level, okay? Number 3, my time to profit. So this is a lot. This is one that a lot of people don't talk about, but I believe thoroughly. Time to profit means I want a business that has a somewhat low startup cost so I can turn a profit very quickly. I don't want a massive upfront expenditure that depletes me from ever turning a profit. I almost have to get a loan just for it to cash flow, right? So an example of this is a commercial subcontractor. Usually large commercial subcontractors have a ton of equipment, and what happens is they go do a commercial job. They don't get paid for 30 to 60 days after. You had to pay your employees, you had to pay for the gas for the machines, you had to pay for everything, all your equipment, and you don't get paid for 30 to 60 days later. And then at that point, you're basically barely hanging on until that next check comes in. And then at the end of the year, you see that you've turned a profit. Now, you can make a lot of money, but you have to be very organized, and it's a very long-term approach to running one of those businesses. Another example is manufacturing, right? Manufacturing, you have to buy all this equipment, all the raw material, cost of goods sold eats you alive in manufacturing. And if you're going to be a great manufacturer, you have to buy in bulk to keep your costs down. So what happens is you have a massive capital expenditure, and then the revenue slowly follows, and eventually, if you're a great manufacturer, your revenue supersedes the expenditures, and you have a profit. And again, this is hard because for you to continue to make money, you have to continue to spend money, and the profit is, the expenses are always should be very, very close to the profit, which I don't really like. I want to see a profit very quickly. I'm not saying that these are bad businesses for anybody to start. I'm just saying they're not for me. Another thing here is trucking or large equipment rental. Trucking a brand new dump truck is like $300,000. A brand new tractor is like $200,000. I mean, you have so much expenditure, even heavy equipment, heavy machinery. You're thinking a skid steer is around $100,000, big excavators $400,000, $500,000. I mean, you have all these things that if you're really getting into a bunch of loans, and you're hoping that people come over and either rent your equipment or that you're paying for that truck that you bought as a trucking company. It's hard to see that profit. And then once you get loans, you're feeding the bank interest, and I'm not a fan of those businesses. I want to have low expenditure, get my profit right away. Now, you can make a ton of money in those businesses. I'm not completely demolishing them. If you're in that business, I think you can do a great job. Me personally, I don't like it because of that. I don't want so many expenses that I'm living in poverty until that check hits, because when somebody doesn't send you that check and you have to go after them, you could be put out of business, and I've seen it. Okay, so those are the 3 things that I consider when I'm starting a business. And those are the 3 things that I really don't want to start, and let me review those: non-recurring revenue, not scalable, and time to profit. Okay, so let's go through the businesses I would start. Okay, number 1 is an insurance agency. I own an insurance agency now, so I'm very biased towards this, but every year a policy renews, we make money, so there's a reoccurring revenue. We have additional products to sell to people. If they have personal lines or business or even life insurance, we can do that. So there's a lot of reoccurring revenue. The business can also be sold for at a very good multiple, and it can be easily scaled because I think we're operating in over 20 states right now. In states that I've really never met our clients, we've had phone conversations, so we can interact in 48 states right now. Outside of Alaska and Hawaii, it's very hard to enter there, but 48 states in the United States, we're active and able to sell insurance, so that's very scalable. It's very easy for us to go into another state and write business successfully. Number 2, medical field. I really like the medical field: dental offices, orthodontists, urgent cares, general practice, optometrist, vision. I really like those businesses because, especially dental, you're looking at reoccurring revenue, cleanings, x-rays. As long as you're keeping costs down, really your biggest costs in these businesses are your employee cost. But these businesses you can make a ton of money in, especially you think of plastic surgeon companies. There's so many. If you can become a trained physician and you also have a business mindset, you can make a ton of money. Being ethical and doing the right thing, but you can make a very large amount of money in these businesses. Number 3, so if I was a trained medical professional, I would start a general practice or whatever my specialty is. Number 3 here is staffing/virtual assistants. There is still a labor shortage in our country. People are always looking for skilled labor. They're looking for labor for clerical. They're looking for people, and starting a staffing company, which is helping businesses. Basically, you're outsourcing them, hiring people, and you're going through the staffing company. The staffing company pays their workers, let's provide an example, $20 an hour. Or the company pays the staffing company $20 an hour. The staffing company pays their workers $18 an hour, so they maybe make $2 or $4, $6 an hour off that employee. So basically, the staffing company is providing a solution for the employer. The employer doesn't have to worry about filling the roles. They lead that up to the staffing company. So you can make a lot of money, recurring revenue, because as long as you're placing somebody and they show up to work on time, you are making money. Virtual assistants, I think if you can wholesale a virtual assistant, which basically means you contract with a company out of and internationally, and then you have domestic relationships to place those virtual assistants. The same thing as a staffing company. Massive opportunity there. People need help and they can't find it because people are simply not willing to work, or they're willing to work but for too high of a wage for that business to be successful. Small businesses. So number 4, social media/digital management. I really don't like to say social media management because I feel like it's very saturated due to people on YouTube like me just continuing to shove that out. I don't really shove that business out. I think it's very saturated, but I think if you can get into digital management, which is more holistically at a company and saying, hey, not only do we manage your social media, your website, your Google, everything, we're managing the digital tools. We're going to help you implement digital tools and become a more tech-savvy company. Massive amount of money in there. If you can create a company to help a specific industry, you can make a ton of money. Number 5, artificial intelligence. If you can create some sort of artificial intelligence for a specific industry to help them become a better, successful company or use it every single day, there's a ton of money there. OpenAI, look it up. I think they have so many investors in their company. So many people are backing them, and there's limitless money there for artificial intelligence. Number 6, bookkeeping and accounting. This is never going to go away. People are always going to have their books kept up for taxes and to be able to help businesses file their taxes and do accounting for their businesses. Great businesses start. Reoccurring revenue, people need it. They're going to, once you do a great job for them, they're going to stay with you every single year. You can charge a good fee. Number 7, this is more real estate category, specifically wedding venues and property management. I like wedding venues because once you build it, the cash flow in a wedding venue is so much better, in my opinion, than a rental property, than even a commercial real estate, because wedding venues, people will pay so much for weddings right now. So the cash flow cap rate is so much higher. Property management, I like property management because you really get the best of both worlds. You don't have to own a property, which is liability, right? I look at it as liability. And because anytime you own something, there is liability there. You don't own the property, and you get a percentage of the rent, and you manage things, and sometimes you'll make good money, sometimes you won't, depending on how active the property is. But I really like it because it's scalable. You can continue to add more properties and continue to manage those. Not as scalable outside of the local area, but I think it is very high up there. Maybe not on the top of my list, but a little bit further down. It's a great business. Number 8, storage facility. Obviously, you can, not a huge capital from an employee standpoint. You build it, people come, they pay you, they never show up, they leave their stuff there, you get to auction it off. Great business. Number 9, logistics and warehouse management. Again, in our world today, there are so many disruptions in supply chain. There's so many things that people are keeping. They need their product shipped here, they need their product shipped there, and if you can be in warehouse management where you're pairing a company with a warehouse so they can have their products sitting there waiting. So many warehouses, I don't know where you are from if you're individually watching this, but there's warehouses clear across the country everywhere. All those warehouses need people to connect them with either logistics or shippers to ship their product across the country. Being in logistics and warehouse management, the nice thing is it's very scalable. You can do, nationwide, international, everywhere. It's relationship focused, and you need to find a way to continue to grow that business once you're in it. But the nice thing is, if you have an expertise in that, you can make a ton of money. Number 10 here, I would say, and this is kind of a wild card, a online boutique store or an online store fueled by social media. I have a watch. I don't have it with me here, but I have a watch, and it's called a Sarbomba, Sarbomba, Sarbomba watch. I really like it. I saw an ad for it. They sell their watch only on social media. I'm not paid. I'm not a paid sponsor. I'm just providing an example here. And they sell it only on social media. And it's very cool to see them grow and how they've really scaled their business and really grown, got some partnerships with some celebrities and stuff. It's a growing watch company, and it just provided me an example of, hey, you could start an online store with a product or a boutique or women's fashion. I know of a company, a women's fashion company that is about $7 to $10 million a year just selling women's clothes through their online store. They've never met, they don't have a retail store, you don't have that overhead. Really, you're selling your product at a profit margin. And as long as you can keep your costs down, you can make great money. So an online store is a great thing to do if you can find the right product and a need in the nation for it or internationally. That's the nice thing about an online store is you can literally sell your product anywhere. So those are the businesses I would not start, and those are the businesses I would start. If you have any questions or would you like to bounce a business idea off me to see what my thoughts are, always hit me up through the link on my bio. I'll be happy to help you out. And as always, please like and subscribe.